Okay, we're back to bioprocessing 2. Today we're going to be pickling cucumbers. And contrasting this to the sauerkraut, we're going to salt is going to increase. We're going to go to a 5% salt, and this process is going to be called a brine fermentation. It's for pickles. And pickles that we're using is small cucumbers, and one of the advantages of a small cucumber, it's gonna pickle a lot better than a large cucumber. And we're gonna, as we go along there, that we're gonna be processing, we're gonna be looking out for some mishaps of bloaters and that sort of thing. So a cucumber is about 98% water. And if you go back into history of pickling, a lot of the literature out there on brine pickling, it was done way back in the 50s. The 50s was a generation of, we were all still farmers in those days. And pickling was a major industry in the United States. And they pretty well worked out all of the problems with mishaps in the 50s, and we're just going to read the literature to keep up with it and not repeat those mishaps. So the cucumber, two things. Most of the, there's two types of fermentation out there that is hobby pickling. It's called vinegar pickling. So what people will do will take the cucumber, wash it, and add a certain amount of vinegar and put all the seasoning in to make it the type of pickle they want. And that leaves out the fermentation process. What we're going to be doing is we're going to actually ferment the pickles. And this process is going to go from 4 to 5 weeks. The lactic acid bacteria that are going to be taken over is going to be the exact succession that we're going to find in sauerkraut. So you don't have to, you're somewhat familiar with that. And so we have the same players. And as we start this pickling process, one of the problems that we have is the flower end. In the 50s, we found out that the enzymes that are active, that causes problems in pickling, comes from the blossom end of the cucumber. So here's the end that's hooked to the cucumber plant. The flower is on this end. And so what we're going to do, we're going to wash these pickles, and we're going to take and slice off this pickle, this bloom end. So that just is a matter of taking a knife and cutting it off. So we're going to cut off a lot of the videotaping because you don't need to watch the whole process. But we're going to fill up a container with our pickles. We're going to add some deionized water on it, and we're going to pull them out, and we're going to chop off the ends of it. And then we're going to figure out what container we're going to use, just like we did with the sauerkraut. Okay, this is a glass container, and what we've done is took a peck of small cucumbers, and we put them in here, and we used pure water, distilled. What's our water system called?
Deionized. Deionized?
Deionized water. And we filled it all the way up with the cucumbers so that we could get an idea of which vessel we're going to be using. So it looks like this is going to be the 20-liter vessel. It's going to be this one, which is perfect because we're going to have a water seal on it. And there's not a whole lot to the washing. All I'm going to do now is take the water that's in here, and I'm going to pour it in this container. And then we're going to take each cucumber and nip the bloom off, And then we're going to measure this water so that we know that we want a 5% brine. And so once we set this up, that's all it is to the cucumbers. We're going to be measuring the activity at T0, T5, T7, T14, and when we get them pickled, what's going to happen, this salt we got in here, what we're going to do then is come back to our container, pour the pickled cucumbers back in here, and then we're going to rinse out the salt. We're going to desalt these cucumbers by flushing water through it, and then at some point we're going to be tasting this to see if we got what level of salt, and then we're going to actually, that begins the real course of pickling. We're going to take the pickled cucumbers, and then we're going to add the spices depending on what type of pickle we want. We can make dill pickles, we can make sour pickles, we can make sliced hamburger pickles, we can make pickle relish, so, and we can add different ingredients to it. So the real fun is going to come after the fermentation. So we'll pick up the latter part of this thing, and we're going to be running samples every week, and then that's the end of the pickling thing. Okay, we have an ad lib. We only had 220 grams of sea salt, so we corrected the thing and used 230 grams of kosher salt. So we've got a hybrid brine solution here. Now we're gonna, wait a minute, that goes there. Hold on. Here we go. This is more like it right here. So we're going to put this in here. Now I'm going to add water and make a water cap. We put the water seal on it, and I'm going to fill it up. This you're going to have to change over the several weeks, because what's going to happen, the yeast, there's two types of yeast. One of them is called Candida, is a film forming yeast. It'll grow and put a film over the top. The other yeast that you find in here is called Saccharomyces. We'll talk about that later. It is actually involved in some of the early fermentations down here. So one is a fermenter, one that forms a film is a oxidizer. It grows with air. So we're going to see a film developing, and what we're going to be doing as we sample it, we're going to take a spoon or something and rake off that film periodically. So other than that, that's the end of our pickling.